What I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to try and show you the design for your Malden Park. And we've spent a little bit of time working with Phil, the developer, really trying to develop something that's unique for Malden. We're borrowing some great aspects from Hammondsfield, but also trying to create a new and unique condition. And before I start, I want to say two things. With me tonight is Nicole Sassy on keyboard, and working with us. And also, earlier reference, we're at the beginning of a process. We've started a design. We know that this process is going to involve a lot of feedback from the community. It's going to involve a lot of work with the city. We love the design. We think it's great, but we know it will be improved by hearing a lot more from you guys, from getting input, and from really developing, working this together as part of a community process. And so what I'd like to do first is really, you're as familiar with this as we are, just orient everybody. The top of the graphics are north. The site that we're talking about is made up of 4 parcels. The most significant is the National Grid parcel, but there are 3 other parcels on the property. It's bounded on the north by Center Street, Commercial Street on the west, Canal Street, and Charles Street on the south. As you know, we're directly across the street from the Malden MBTA station, just south of where we are now here in City Hall, proximate to 2 municipal parking garages. We are not proposing parking structure on the site. We'll be using the municipal parking garages. The last geographic piece I want to mention, at the bottom of the screen you can see Malden River, and you can kind of tell where the Malden River used to flow. It used to flow through the middle of the site. There's a tributary there, and in fact it actually still has a drainage system. There are underground culverts that currently help to drain the Malden River basin, and they will remain after we continue and finish the stadium. That's part of the structure. Will be built over those culverts. We take a look at the design of the stadium, and the one thing I would mention that is important is we occupy an entire block. And what that means is it provides us access on all 4 sides of the development. And what that means is it allows us to organize where we have pedestrians and visitors to the park separate from where we have loading and service. And so as I go through in a few minutes, talking about how you arrive and how materials come and go from the site, it really allows us to organize it well. And speaking of organization, the 2 things that are really critical about how we put the pieces together on the site, the first and the most important is the field itself. Professional baseball says that you have to organize your field so that a batter does not have the sun in his eyes when he's got a 90-mile-an-hour fastball coming at him. So the first piece of this is really organizing the direction and orientation of the field, and that's really a critical part of the design and the layout of a site like this. The second thing, from an urban point of view and a design, is we really wanted to make sure that our front door faced Malden Center. It was directed toward and part of the experience as you arrive at Malden Center and related to the MBTA station, as well as the garages, because we know that's where a lot of people will be arriving from. And so I'm going to spend a few minutes just talking about access. Nicole's going to switch software here and has been referenced. We've got a 3D model, so we're going to fly around the stadium a little bit for you, and then ultimately Pete's going to take you on a little walk around the park. But for starters, same orientation, and what we want to talk about is sort of the access at the north end of the site. The MBTA station, the 2 parking garages. We expect that people will be arriving by T, as Alex mentioned. A lot of people in our part of the world are used to traveling to baseball games by subway, and we expect that to continue. For those people that do want to drive, we know the capacity of the garages that are here, and we're going to encourage people to use those municipal garages. We're hopeful that a lot of folks will just walk at the end of the day from Malden Center, come down to the stadium. As well, we expect that there'll be some improvements that we know we have to make at the main intersection of Commercial Street and Center to encourage that pedestrian traffic from the MBTA. We know we need to improve that and make that safer. We're also talking about the idea that some people are going to be walking from the garage. We'll be taking a look at the intersection of Canal Street, seeing what kind of pedestrian improvements need to happen there, and Phil's going to talk a little more of that when we get to the questions and answers. We can go to the next piece. The other sort of access and arrival points that I want to talk about briefly, we have a loading dock and a service area, and we've located those across from Stop & Shop, and that's their loading docks are right here. And so we feel like Canal Street makes sense to be the back door and have the in and out for loading and services. We also have in that same area a drop-off area for handicapped accessibility. I mentioned we're not going to have parking here, but we want to make sure everybody has access to the park. And so there'll be the ability to pull up and somebody that needs extra assistance go directly into the park. It'll also be some valet parking that we'll handle there. So trying to provide multiple means of arriving and leaving the site. We also have a few service pieces. You need to be able to get on the field with trucks and vehicles for concerts and for maintenance. And so we've got an access point where you can physically drive onto the site. And finally, we have a location where we're providing a spot for the visiting team bus to pull over, get off the street, and be secured so that the players have a safe and secure access to and from the locker rooms. The last sort of access thing I want to mention, we have a secondary gate on the south end of the site. We anticipate some people might bike or walk from the other developments that are south of the stadium. And at a stadium, you want to provide multiple points of getting in and out to try and disperse some of that pedestrian activity, try and make sure that people have an easy and free way in and free way out. What we're going to do now is I want to sort of just talk about the pieces and parts of the development that we're proposing. This is the front entrance, the main front door. We've got it organized, as I said, so that it faces the MBTA and downtown. Phil has mentioned, and one of the critical parts of the design is this plaza out front. It's 30,000 square feet. I think we're all familiar with other stadiums, maybe theaters, places where people that are arriving and queuing are sort of standing on the public sidewalk. This plaza allows us to manage those folks, get them off the public sidewalks, get them away from commercial streets so that we don't have people that need to be queuing or standing in the way of traffic. It provides safety. It also provides an opportunity for some of those other events that Phil mentioned and those activities out front. It makes this really a part of Malden Center and really tries to finish a spot that right now is an empty parking lot and we feel can be used for a much higher order.